Cool. So with that being said, let's jump back into the cryptos. So we did a little bonus on ADA, Cardano, and he dropped his little knowledge bomb there. He's then broken down Bitcoin, and there's a lot of opportunity. So we're still not out of the woods yet with Bitcoin. There's a couple of trading options that he's given. He gave an example of how you could get an 8-to-1 or a 10-to-1 trade on Bitcoin if it goes up. But on the flip side of that, it could still, the charts are showing us that it could still go down to that $21,000 to $18,000 range. So there are lots of options still. And as Andy said, we're not out of the woods yet. The Bitcoin bull run is not fully back on track. If you're tuning in to the show on the replay and you've missed that so far, then just go ahead and watch the beginning of the show. Scroll back to the Bitcoin analysis, because it's definitely going to be worth your time. But now let's jump into the one that is on a lot of people's lips, especially the last few days with all the news that's come out around the gas fees and reduced gas fees and everything. And that is the other crypto monster that is Ethereum. So take us from the top to the bottom. What are you thinking Ethereum's going to be doing? I almost said Bitcoin then, Freudian slip. What do you think Ethereum's going to be doing over the next few days and weeks based on what you can see on the charts?
Yeah, we'll have a look. I mean, it's got the obvious boost from the hard fork, but the thing now is like, where do we go next? Overall, I'm bullish on this on this crypto. I think, I've spoken about this for quite a while. I'm more bullish on Ethereum than I am on Bitcoin.
Why? The big question, why? Is it just purely through your technical analysis, or is there anything else that helps with that? Because that's a big statement for you. Like, after what you said, you're not prepared to say about Bitcoin just then. For you to say that with that assurity on Ethereum, I have to ask why.
Well, I think there's a number of fundamental reasons, but I think the biggest thing is that, I think Ethereum has been held back by the extremely high gas fees. And obviously the whole market's pulled back. But I think Ethereum, in comparison to Bitcoin, is undervalued. I think there's a lot of potential in terms of what it does. It does a lot more than what Bitcoin does. And yes, Cardano is its competitor, and Polkadot, but first to market, developers already using it, and the only, which gives it that kind of brand and stability and trust, that it's the go-to. And I think there's so many projects now that are built on the Ethereum network that I find it almost impossible to think that this isn't going to explode higher, because it's just, anybody holding back has been holding back maybe because of the gas fees. And I've experienced the gas fees, and it is expensive to convert Ethereum into other ERC20 tokens, but that's getting sorted. And it's got the name and the usage is already there. So from that point of view, and there's a lot of other things that I could talk about that I won't get into now, but from a fundamental point of view, there's a lot to it that is going to create, even with steady demand, the supply is going to get reduced over time. It's called the triple halving. I mean, Bitcoin's experienced it. And the demand for me is only going to increase now with the gas fee. So I'm definitely looking, as I said at the start of the year, at a 10K Ethereum, and then beyond that. And I do think I'm bullish on Bitcoin overall. I'm just not convinced right now that Bitcoin is where I should be putting my money. I think there's better places where I think it will grow better, rather than adding Bitcoin to my portfolio. So from a technical point of view, I mean, this is the 50 EMA here, and you can see on the weekly EMA that's the weekly. This is basically where we pulled back to. We pretty much went back to that 50 there, and that's where we've held and pushed up. You know, from a confidence point of view, I'm not yet overly convinced that we're about to break the highs. There's a couple of things, but it's not the be all and end all. But like right now, I mean, I can see, for example, like the selling volume here was strong. We have seen a little bit of an increase in volume here, but yeah, as you can see, it's not on these. It's still relatively low compared to what it was, but there's certainly some interest that's still coming in. I think it's a good buy for the long term still, but from a short term point of view, I still prefer to trade Ethereum. I prefer to find those little pockets of opportunities like I showed there with Bitcoin. But yeah, certainly, I mean, I'll do a bit more of an analysis on this on the daily chart to see what else we can see. So just from a technical point of view, you can see, you know, you want to look at the levels where this market has reacted in the past. So that's an obvious one, 3,443. Let's see what else we got here that we can kind of talk about. So we'll look at the see that there, see how it reacted and then broke through. So that's bullish, and then if we just take that high resistance line there, and I'll do one more thing here, guys. So I think that might help people see the picture now.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, we're at a potential hidden resistance. So that could create a little bit of a pullback, maybe towards this last little spike here. You can see it's quite a nice area. So you might, I'll tell you a level you can mark down. Right there. That looks like a nice level to mark down. 2750. That could be a nice area to buy some spot on this, or trade it up. You could even look for a potential short down here, up here somewhere, if you can find something on the lower time frame. Right now we had a quite a strong closing bar, and we're actually holding here as support. So we might just have another little push up, and possibly, I mean, the ideal would be a push up here. That would about that 3.5. If that kind of goes up there, I think that's the place where you the higher probability of a short comes in there, about 3.5. Otherwise, just on this time frame, I think that there looks like a good buy zone around sort of 2.7. And then, you know, you can do it as a short-term play like there, because you could, again, similar to what we said with Bitcoin, you could also get something like that. So as I said before at the start of the show, like right now, I wouldn't be leveraging long. If anything, spot or trade trade what you see. And so that's kind of that's the picture. And I think, again, as I kind of said, you know, I think ideally you kind of want to see the market in this zone here before I start to get really bullish. And I know you might think, wow, that's far up. But the thing is like, if you saw how I grew my account before, it's because I wasn't leveraging in these spots. I'm leveraging when I get confirmation. Like I'm leveraging when I say, okay, well, look, the path is clear now. So now when I buy a pullback, I can say with confidence that we're going to go higher. And so then I catch that move because there's no resistance, there's no sellers coming in. So you catch a really fast move with a tight stop. And so it doesn't really, when you're using leverage, it doesn't matter if you're buying at 4 or 4.5 or 5. Because if I'm buying here at 3, of course you prefer to buy at 3, but then we have that risk of like, well, hold on a minute, if I'm leveraging, I'm using money that's not mine and I'm wrong, and this market actually isn't going up and I've leveraged myself and this starts to happen on a spot, you can hold this. You're like, well, do you know what? That's fine. It's part of my strategy. That's great. I'm happy. In fact, you know what? Let it go down. I'll hold my spot and I'll buy some more because I know the long term is up. And you know you're building wealth for yourself. Whereas when you're on a leverage position, you can't do that. So that's why you leverage and trade short term. Take your profits, put it into spot. That's the best strategy right now. I think we'll stop there on analysis. Any questions?
Mate, that's been awesome. Guys, with the last few minutes that we've got, just let us know if you've got any questions or comments. I saw Kevin mentioned earlier, thanks a lot for that. The US Senate are voting on a bill apparently to tax cryptos. Don't know too much about it, but seen lots on Twitter. It could impact movement today, as I believe there's a vote about it today. You know, when you look at that chart, it makes a lot of sense about what you're saying, but it does feel like we're going to need some sort of mini black swan news event to help it go back down to those lower levels, right? Otherwise, it could just stay ranging.
Event. I think it's just
a mini black swan. So like a black guinea pig, if you will.
I think the powers that be will. There's always ways, like you've seen how the market's moved with just some Elon Musk tweets. So there's I don't necessarily think it's going to be like a big massive crash if it does go down. I think it will just be one of those where maybe you have one day of a big push and to liquidate some people. But yeah, it's there could be news that affects it, but ultimately we can read everything from the charts without the news, and the news is just something for journalists to explain what's happened.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue there's a lot of people that have been involved in a controlled demolition of the crypto markets, and could there be one last push down to sweep out some more over leveraged people before the inevitable happens and cryptos do end up going back up? So yeah, it's going to be an interesting ride, and I'm really grateful to see it. When I first came in, when you introduced it to me at the end of February, when we launched the program, it was like, you don't really have like an awareness of like the leverage and the margin side of things. And to hear you speaking like with such responsibility now, like even you with your expertise and your experience and knowledge, and you're like, guys, I'm not taking margin trades. And you've explained what you're doing and stuff like that. It's really humbling to see, you know, you are a man of your craft, and, you know, you stick to your rules. And obviously when it's time to open up the gates and let the pony run loose, then obviously there's a time and a place for it. And I guess that is that experience level that you've got, where you've been around the block to see too many of these false dawns, and then for you to just get slapped around the face with a wet fish and people go, see, told you, we're not letting you have it that easy.
Yeah, I think the thing to note is what I kind of mentioned that maybe people didn't get, is that once you've got that clear path, you know, it really isn't going to make a big difference, like whether you got in at 3 or 2 or 1 versus 4 or 5. Because if you think of it like this, if you've got 5,000 to play with, but because the conditions are right and you're using good risk management, you've now got 50k to play with instead of 5 because you're using leverage. The numbers are just going to be explosive. Like, you've just got to be prepared and just have a plan and wait for those conditions to be there where everybody's like, okay, well, now I think the market, see, like right now, you go online, you'll have a mixed bag of opinions of whether like if you go onto different groups or Twitter or whatever, you'll see it's not like it was pre 65k Bitcoin. Like, it is mixed. So you've got the people that are saying, yeah, market's back, and then you've got people that are saying, hey, be careful, the rug might be pulled on from under us again. So you've got that fear in the market, which is going to be translated in price. Like those little sentiment things that you read online, that will be translated to the price. So the thing for me is, like, just trade, make money, and let everybody else worry about the guessing game. Just follow your plan. So it's like, just accumulate your coins. If it goes higher, great. If it goes lower, great, because we're buying at spot, and we know, in the short term, you might think, oh man, my portfolio was 200k, it's only 90k now, for example. But you've got to think, where is this going to be? It's now given me an opportunity. So if you really believe, for example, Ethereum is going to be 10k, right? You know with certainty, as certain as you can be, and right now it's 3, and you buy it at 3, and then you're like, it starts to go down. Why should you be upset? You're not leveraged. Why should you be upset? You're now saying, well, no, I know it's going to be at 10, so I'll buy some more at 2, and at 1.5, and at 1, if God gives us that gift. So that's your mental approach, right? That should be your mental approach. And then the other side of it is like, well, have a few grand into a futures account and learn the mastery of what we teach. Master it because it works. And then take your trade, build your account up, and just keep buying spot. That's what all you need to do. And then the next 4 or 5 years, as I've said it, most people will be able to retire, I could say, or at least be in a really good financial position. That's honestly what I believe.